down and out, riddled with doubt, had nowhere to go. Everything's moving so slow, but time's moving too fast. I hope this feeling don't last. Well, I've been away from myself too long. My body is aching from all my wrongs. And now that I know I'm not that strong, I'll keep slipping onto you. I'll keep slipping until my time is through. I'll keep slipping onto you, yeah, onto you. Well, I've been away from myself too long. My body is aching from all my wrongs. And now that I know I'm not that strong, I'll keep slipping onto you. I'll keep slipping until my time is through. I'll keep slipping onto you, yeah, onto you. I was down and out, so riddled with doubt,
I am the devil. I am the Lord Satan from the netherworld, ruler of the damned and eternal king of hell. Even I, the master of deceit, can only stomach so much bullshit from the mainstream media and indie grifters. That's why I tune in to Morning Extra with Uncle Warren, because he eliminates my competition, and also because I know I'm gonna see that motherfucker soon.
Deo, Deo.
Baby's got a booger and a shooter and that shake it won't go down. Baby's got a booger and a shooter and that shake it won't go down. Corrosion to her thighs, erosion of her pride. Baby's got a shooter, baby's got corrosion now, corrosion now. Baby's got it.
Hey, yes. Good morning. Can you guys hear me? I got to tell you a little bit of a quick story. So, word to the wise, if you're a streamer and you use the Windows operating system, particularly Windows 10, do not, under any circumstances, update your computer right before you're going live because it'll break shit. So it was just a small update, took like a couple of minutes, and then I started everything up. The microphone didn't work, and then I got the microphone work, then the headphones didn't work, and then I had to reboot the whole fucking thing, and then finally everything worked, like about 3 minutes before this shit started. So anyway, you love those little aggravations right before, you're going live, and you have all these little bells and whistles that you got to take care of here at the same time too. Good morning, everybody. It is butt-ass cold here in Chicago. I believe it is 9 degrees right now, up from 6. So, giggity. So hopefully, it'll be a little warmer today. Shout everybody out, of course, like we always do. What's up, Rick? Rick, you need to bring some of that heat up from hell, brother. When next time you take a smoke break, just bring like a couple of molten, souls. Just drop them off so we can just like, kind of rub our hands and, heat ourselves up there. Yeah, I know. That's what she said. What's up, Global? Good to see you. Fred Edward. I've never owned a Windows using computer. I find them unsettling. That's true. I mean, some people are pretty territorial. They have, some people are just, Mac people, and they're just like, I will never even say the letters P and C together, Thanks, Rick. I appreciate you. I know you're on it. You always do good work. If I can get I'm going to get another mouse. I swear to God, this mouse is not doing it. Yeah, Zelle, thanks. Good to see you. Yeah, I got them all cut. I'd say the new hair. So, yeah, yeah, it is, John. It's cold as heck. Yeah, I did it yesterday. I haven't been to a barber in about, I would say 17 years, because I like to keep my money. If I had the bones, I guess, yeah, but when you go to a barber, you got to pay for the haircut, but then you got to tip too. If you don't tip, you're a fucking asshole. Right. So, so I don't, I'm not down with that. Fred, you've used PCs. You just don't like to. No, I understand. I mean, people, it's comfort zones, right? I'm ambidextrous. I go both ways. So, I'm PC and Mac. Oh, Willie. Good morning, sir. How are you? Good to see you, my friend. Willie getting, dropping a 10 spot there. Appreciate you, man. Looking forward to ExtraBulla being on the Willie Bragg Show tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's right, Willie. I'm going to be on there. We're going to cut up. We're going to talk about Titty Mountain and every time me and Willie get together, we always talk about Pilot Mountain in North Carolina, and he's always tells me it has that little bump on the top, makes it looks like a nipple, and so I've been calling it Titty Mountain ever since. And by golly, I'm not worried. I'm never gonna call it anything else. John, good to see you. I work in IT, so I don't. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't. That's funny. That's funny. I know of man, holy cow. I had my nails done yesterday by 2 different people, and I had to tip both of them in the cash. I know, right? And that's the thing. If I got if I was like Moneybags McGee, I'd have no problem. I'd be like Johnny Appleseed, just like spreading the cash all over the place. But unfortunately, that is not the case. We got Chuck in the house. Chuck's Intergalactic UFO Show. Chuck says, still using Windows XP on my ship. Pretty rock solid after the 17 service packs update. They're still providing service packs? Or did you have to force somebody to do that? Zelle, I said hi to you, but I'll say hi again because, it's twice as nice. We got Leanna in the house. Good to see ya. And CBC voter. That's right, man. Yo news. We got that coming up. A little bit of a shorter show. I mean, we may only go like 2 hours today, so we'll see. Anybody else in the house? Well, I'm sure they'll find it. Of course, Kate, my beloved Kate. Kate, you're going to paddle me for my birthday? Is that what it is? Kate can't paddle. It wouldn't be special because she paddles me all the time. Right, Kate? You know what I'm talking about. I'm a spanking kind of guy. Yeah, so it is nice and chilly. And I went, I'll remind you later, but yeah, we're going to be on the Willie Bragg show tonight. So I'm looking forward to that. I always have fun with them. Oh yeah. And Props here too. Sushi gang. I'm not using your nom de plumes Prop. I'm just going to call you Prop, even though Prop is a nom de plume as well. That's okay. So Chuck's ship needs an AI update. He is. I think I was running on Windows 3.11, but then I came to my senses. Anyway, folks, we got a lot to get to, and we want to also, of course, we're thinking about our pals out there who are dealing with some issues right now. Our buddy Chanda over at Beauty and the Boomer and Trailer Park Pundit. Beautiful lady, so sweet, dealing with lung cancer right now, and she's going through all the treatments, and and she's doing a good job getting through it. So we wish her a very speedy recovery. And but at the same time, these treatments cost money. So if you have any cash you'd like to help out, or if you want to share out the links, the GoFundMe link for her is down below. And of course, our buddy Kevin over at Black Bear News, his house burned in the Eaton fire a few days ago, and so he is basically homeless right now, and he could use all the help you can get. And his GoFundMe is down below, along with other links for him as well. So you'd be using all of my paddles from your reserve. I know, man. We go through those things like a few packs a clip a week, don't we, Kate? But I keep asking for more. It's my own fault. I'm the devil. No, I'm not. Rick works for the devil. He knows who I'm talking about. All right, enough of the nonsense. We got shit to do, and then I gotta get fucked up later. So, wait, what? Who said that? So, maybe things are starting to come to a close in Israel. I don't know, probably not. According to a report, Israel and Hamas agree in principle to a ceasefire and hostage deal. CBS News reported yesterday that both Israel and Hamas have agreed in principle to a draft hostage and ceasefire deal that could be finalized this week. Hang on just a second. Ugh. Woo. The report, which cited U.S., Arab, and Israeli officials, said if the final details are worked out and the Israeli government approves it, the deal could be implemented as soon as this weekend, before the January 20th inauguration of the Orange Man Bad. The AP had a similar report that said Hamas had accepted a draft deal and that details were still being finalized before Israeli approval. The deal is largely based on a proposal President Biden put forward in May of last year, which Hamas accepted months ago. According to Israeli media reports, pressure on Netanyahu from Trump's incoming Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, is the reason why there's been progress in recent days. The deal involves 3 phases, but according to AP, it would not commit Israel to a permanent ceasefire or full withdrawal from Gaza. The AP report says details of the second phase still must be negotiated during the first. Those details remain difficult to resolve, and the deal does not include written guarantees that the ceasefire will continue until a deal is reached. It means Israel could resume its military campaign after the first phase ends. According to media reports, the first phase involves a 42-day ceasefire, and during that time, Hamas would release 33 Israeli hostages, including women, children, the elderly, and 5 female IDF soldiers. Some of the hostages released in the first phase may be dead, but Israeli officials said they believe most are still alive. In exchange, Israel is expected to release hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. During the first phase, Israeli troops will withdraw from population centers in Gaza, and Palestinians will be able to return to North Gaza, although there is nothing for them to return to since IDF has destroyed nearly every building in sight. Aid deliveries will also be surged, with 600 trucks per day expected to enter the Strip. The second phase of the deal would involve the release of all male Israeli hostages from Gaza and a full IDF withdrawal, with many details still needing to be worked out. The third phase would involve the exchange of bodies and the start of the reconstruction of Gaza. So what we know about the Gaza truce and what's being negotiated. So probably some of this is going to be a little bit repetitive. So they're going to free those 33 hostages, and Israel's supposed to release 1,000 prisoners. As we said, mediators from Qatar, Egypt, and the U.S. have intensified efforts to finalize the deal in recent days. Qatar said the agreement was in its final stages. So, like we said, 33 hostages. And let me get down here. If I can get this fucking mouse to work right. 2 sources close to Hamas told AFP that Israel would release those 1,000 Palestinian prisoners. That's great, getting them out of there. So I'm trying to see. This was a separate story, and I didn't get a chance to read it all the way through. I want to see if there was any new information in here. So according to the Times of Israel, officials believe the 33 hostages are alive. Last week, Hamas indicated it had agreed to release 34 hostages in the first stage of a multi-phase deal, but Israeli forces retrieved the body of one of those listed, and now it's down to 33. Negotiations for a second phase would commence on the 16th day after the first phase's implementation, an Israeli official said. This phase would cover the release of the remaining captives, including male soldiers, men of military age, and the bodies of slain hostages. Israeli media reported that under the proposed deal, Israel would maintain a buffer zone within Gaza during the first phase. Israeli forces were expected to remain up to 800 meters inside Gaza, stretching from Rafah to the south to Beit Hanun in the north, according to the source close to Hamas. Israeli forces would not fully withdraw from Gaza until all hostages are returned, the Israeli official said. Haaretz reported that Israel would allow the movement of residents from southern Gaza to the north, but like we said earlier, there's nothing there in the north because everything is gone. The source close to Hamas said Israeli forces would withdraw from the Netzarim corridor westward toward Salaheddin Road in the east, enabling displaced people to return through an electronic checkpoint equipped with cameras. No Israeli forces will be present, and Palestinian militants will be barred from passing through the checkpoint during the return of displaced persons, he said. Previous negotiations faltered over several contentious issues. Key sticking points include disagreements over the permanence of a ceasefire, the scale of humanitarian aid allowed into Gaza, and the logistics of returning displaced Gazans to their homes. Additional disputes concern the withdrawal of Israeli troops, the reopening of border crossings, and governance over Gaza. Shithead has firmly opposed a full troop withdrawal and rejected any Palestinian governance in the territory. The ongoing of talks in Qatar being conducted with Hamas and Israeli negotiations present in 2 separate rooms, according to a source familiar with the talks. So some sort of movement towards a ceasefire. You know, I'm always a guy from Missouri on this. I'll believe it when I see it. And with Israel is involved in the mix, of course, there's always fuckery afoot. You know that. I know that. So meanwhile, in Lebanon, Lebanon has a new prime minister now. So Lebanon's prime minister designate Nawaf Salam promises to rescue, reform, and rebuild. There he is right there. So Lebanon's prime minister designate Nawaf Salam has pledged to rescue, reform, and rebuild the crisis-hit country, and he has extended an olive branch to Hezbollah, which did not back his nomination. In his first speech in the role on Tuesday, Salam said he was reaching out across the political spectrum after winning the backing of more than half of Lebanon's parliamentarians. Well, they have more than one. My hands are extended to all to set off together on this mission, said Salam, who was serving as president of the ICJ before his designation as prime minister. I am not of those who exclude, but those who unite, he said, calling for a new chapter in Lebanon. The newly elected president, Joseph Aoun, asked him to form a new government on Monday. Salam's nomination highlights the weakened position of Iran-backed Hezbollah after a devastating war with Israel and the toppling of its ally Bashar al-Assad in Syria last month. So he's in, but that means somebody's got to replace him at the ICJ, right? And so he was Salam was spearheading the charges against Netanyahu, and I think it's Gallant was at the time, and then there was I think it's those two, or was that the ICC? But anyway, the vice president of the ICJ is now running the thing, or is going to be set to replace, and unfortunately, this person is pro-Israel. Pro-Israel judge set to replace Lebanon's Nawaf Salam at the helm of ICJ. A Ugandan judge who has sided with Israel against accusations of genocide in Gaza is poised to become president of the top UN court hearing the case. The ICJ has a vacancy to fill after its president was appointed prime minister of Lebanon late on Monday. The court's vice president, Julia Sebutinde, is the only judge apart from an Israeli to have voted against orders for Israel to restrain its offensive in Gaza. It's only the second such vacancy in the ICJ's history after former President Humphrey Waldock died in 1981, at which point Vice President Tamsin Milius assumed the top job in The Hague. Former ICJ legal officer Mike Becker said his best guess was that Judge Sebutinde would similarly act as president until the end of Mr. Salam's scheduled term in 2027. So she'll be in there for 2 years. There's enough ambiguity that if they decided they wanted to hold new elections within the court to appoint somebody new as president and potentially then a new vice president also, I think they could do that, Mr. Becker, an assistant law professor at Trinity College Dublin, told The National, but that's never happened before. Elected vice president last February, Judge Sebutinde would not necessarily hear the main arguments in the genocide case brought by South Africa against Israel, because ICJ cases typically take years, and it may well be past the end of her term in 2027 by the time that stage is reached. She could potentially then seek election as president in her own right. South Africa has 3 times asked the court to issue emergency orders to Israel before the full genocide claim is heard. Judges initially asked Israel to do all it could to prevent genocide, then went further by telling it to immediately halt its offensive in Rafah by a 13-2 vote. Only Judge Sebutinde and Israeli appointee Aaron Barak voted in opposition. In dissenting opinions, Judge Sebutinde wrote that Israel had taken concrete actions to provide aid to Gaza, Well, no, the concrete actions was the rubble that fell on the Palestinians. That's the only concrete action Israel has taken. To provide aid to Gaza, and that lawyers for South Africa had not demonstrated any genocidal intent on the part of the Israeli military. She said the dispute was essentially and historically a political one that was not for judges in the Netherlands to settle. Hey, Ellen, good to see you. Good morning, dear. Yeah, so popping kids in the head is political, folks. It's not genocide. Any genocidal intent is negated by Israel's attacks on legitimate military targets. They haven't been attacking legitimate. They've been bombing hospitals and schools. Oh my God. I hope this woman has nothing to do with any sort of, I mean, not that the ICJ is going to actually do anything to any of these people, but still. Any genocidal intent is negated by Israel's attacks on legitimate military targets, its warnings to civilians, and its efforts to provide aid, she said. A careful examination of Israel's war policy and of the full statements of the responsible government officials further demonstrates the absence of a genocidal intent. Oh my God, really? The first African woman to sit on the court, Judge Sebetinde, also opposed a separate ICJ opinion in July last year that found Israel's presence in occupied Palestine territory to be unlawful. She said the case amounted to a one-sided forensic audit of Israel's compliance with international law. The Ugandan government has distanced itself from her views on Israel. Good for you, Uganda. As ICJ president, she would preside over hearings at the Peace Palace, which I used to live at the Peace Palace. That was a great place, man. They had a nice salad bar downstairs, and wield a casting vote when judges are evenly split. She would also be a primary driver of the court's agenda and schedule, according to Mr. Becker, and head a committee that drafts ICJ opinions, but only when she is in the majority camp. Whoever is presiding over the drafting committee has a very significant role in terms of essentially deciding how to structure a judgment, how to approach certain issues, he said. That's quite important. A president can very much choose to highlight or downplay certain issues in how the court approaches a dispute. The 15-member court has various other pending cases, including on Russia's invasion of Ukraine and a fatal plane crash over Tehran in 2020 caused by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Nicaragua last year failed in a bid to have German arms sales to Israel blocked by the ICJ, although judges did not dismiss the case entirely. Mr. Salam's departure for Lebanon also leaves the spot open for a regular judge on the bench. Approached by the National, a court representative referred to rules calling on the UN Secretary General to trigger the procedure for an election. It is then up to the UN General Assembly and Security Council to elect a new member. By convention, the seats on the court are divided among regions of the world, but in a surprise voting result in 2017, Mr. Salam filled a seat that had previously belonged to a group called Western Europe and others, which includes the US and Australia. Salam ended up in that seat because of an oddity in the way the voting took place in that round, and he more or less ended up replacing Chris Greenwood, who was the judge from the UK. Traditionally, this has been a seat that has gone to a Western European state, he said, but because this seat has been held by a judge from Lebanon, it might be that states from the Middle East feel that this seat now needs to be held by a judge from the Middle East. And makes sense, I guess. But, yeah, so like I said, these cases take years, which is why I'm not relying on the ICJ or ICC or any of these world organizations, these world legal organizations, to actually do anything about it right away. So I'm not worried about this chick, but at the same time, you never know. Fuckery's always afoot. So meanwhile, there's another report out of Israel, and this kind of confirms what we knew was going on all along, and that we've seen, what the hell? I didn't mean to do that. I am always fucking shit up. Why do I even come here? Okay, there we go. All right, are we good? Okay. So this is a new report, but like I said, this is something we've already known, but at least more official reports now are starting to come out. So Palestinian women detail sexual assault by Israeli troops during a Kamal Adwan hospital raid. Dozens of Palestinian women and girls reported being sexually abused by Israeli soldiers during the storming of Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza last month, according to Middle East Eye. Israeli troops blockaded the hospital for nearly 3 months, preventing the entry of aid, medicine, and food while burning parts of the hospital and heavily bombing its complex and the area around it. When soldiers entered the hospital, they killed several patients and medical staff and forced the roughly 350 others to leave at gunpoint, telling them to go to southern Gaza. Middle East Eye spoke with 13-year-old Mariam al-Muqayyad, who says she was ordered by male Israeli troops to take off her clothes while she was still in the hospital. The soldiers dragged her by her hair, made her kneel down, and began abusing her. We refused to remove our hijabs, so they started exerting more pressure, ordering girls under 20 to move south without their families, but the families refused. They then strip-searched many women and sexually harassed them, Muqayyad said. Israeli soldiers reportedly touched private parts of women and girls while beating those who resisted. The army then took groups of women and girls to the Al-Fakura school in northern Gaza. They told us they would film us to show us the world, that Hamas was using us as human shields. When we arrived, they dragged us by our hair across the schoolyard, forced us into toilets, and ordered us to undress, she said. The soldiers then, quote, dragged us back outside by our hair. They threw our clothes at us and made us kneel with our hands raised, then slammed our heads against the walls, the 13-year-old recounted. 13 years old. An Israeli soldier hit a pregnant nurse in the belly with his weapon butt. They searched us and separated children from their parents, then made us walk behind tanks emitting black smoke. Self-defense, folks. This is all self-defense. Every one of these people's Hamas, right? On December 28th, Euromed Human Rights Monitor also reported that Israeli forces sexually assaulted women and girls used during their attack on Kamal Adwan Hospital. The Israeli army detained dozens of women and girls, subjecting them to severe abuse amounting to sexual harassment, alongside degrading treatment that violated their human dignity. This included beating them and forcing them to remove their hijabs and clothing. One woman told Euromed a soldier forced a nurse to take off her trousers, then placed his hand on her. When she tried to resist, he struck her hard across the face, causing her nose to bleed. Another woman said that a soldier told a woman in their group, "Take it off or we'll force it off you." In another case, a soldier tore the clothes off one woman, exposing her chest. Another woman recounted being dragged by a soldier who forced her to press against him, saying, "Take it off now," while making obscene remarks at her. And, this new ICJ president, no genocide, no atrocities, there's nothing like that. This is what, and I hate doing stories like these. I hate providing information like this. We have to provide the information because the mainstream media is not going to be telling you about these horror stories. They're not going to tell you about these things. So you have to go to independent sources. And like I always say, just because it's an independent source doesn't mean it's, legit, always, fuckery's afoot. So, always have your mind open. But at the same time, make sure that your sources are relevant. Maybe try to find like 2 or 3 different sources on the material. But, this kind of shit has been going on. And we've seen, reports from people there on TikTok and other social media platforms that will allow the videos, and to see people like this in this ICJ who are supposed to be, smart people and know about the law and recognize what a genocide is. This is not the first genocide. There's been plenty. So it's very, very heartbreaking to see that. But like I said, maybe this lady is not going to really have too much in the mix. But again, will they actually do anything? That remains to be seen. So, we talk about, the Israeli forces there, the IDF, just being total and complete monsters. Well, apparently it is starting to manifest some guilt among some of its own soldiers as Israeli soldiers increasingly refuse to continue fighting in Gaza over war crimes, according to a report. A growing number of Israeli soldiers are reportedly refusing to continue serving in the occupation of the Gaza Strip, admitting they took part in war crimes and atrocities. According to the AP, seven Israeli soldiers who have refused to continue fighting at Gaza spoke of how occupation forces indiscriminately killed Palestinians, looted houses, and destroyed or burned them, despite having posed no threat. One unnamed former infantry soldier said that during his 2-week deployment in late 2023, he witnessed Israeli forces burn down around 15 buildings without reason. I didn't light the match, but I stood guard outside the house. I participated in war crimes, the soldier acknowledged. I'm so sorry for what we've done. Yeah, I don't think sorry's going to cut it there, pal. 27-year-old medic Yuval Green was also cited as saying he witnessed soldiers desecrating, looting, and vandalizing homes before eventually also burning them. The actions led to his decision to abandon his post last January after almost 2 months in Gaza. The war crimes were not limited to looting and arson, however, but extended to the indiscriminate killing of Palestinian civilians, including minors, infants. According to one officer in the Armored Corps named Yotam Vilk, the military's instructions were to shoot anyone not authorized to enter an Israeli-controlled buffer zone in Gaza. He witnessed at least 12 people be shot and killed, with the image of Israeli troops killing an unarmed Palestinian teenager particularly embedded into his mind. He died as part of a bigger story, as part of the policy of staying there and not seeing Palestinians as people, Vilk said. So, I mean, yeah, that's great that you're not being an IDF, soldier anymore, but you got to do more than say, I'm sorry. That's why I think, hey, what's up, Steve? Good to see you, man. Steve Wolfbrand in the house. So yeah, all these atrocities are going on, and you can't hide them anymore. You can't hide them. All these people that's denying it now are in denial, right? Or they're being paid to be in denial. What's up, Chris? It's good to see you. At least this shows they have not lost a vital sense of humanity. Yeah, I know, right? Silver lining. I guess. I mean, if you could get them to stop murdering people, I guess that's always a positive. But like I said, you got to do more than that. I mean, if you really think these are war crimes going on, and you actually have a conscience about it, first off, you wouldn't have been murdering people in the first place. Second, if you had, you would be taking more steps than saying, oopsie sauce, sorry I murdered your child, because nobody's going to take their apologies seriously at this point. Yipper! What's up? Good to see you. Good morning. So back to the killings, as Israeli strikes killed 63 Palestinians in Gaza amid the talk of the ceasefire deal. So, amid reports that a Gaza ceasefire deal is advancing, of course, Israeli strikes continued to pound the strip on Tuesday, killing at least 63 Palestinians since dawn. That's according to medical sources that spoke to Al Jazeera. Among the dead were 2 children killed by an Israeli attack while sheltering in a tent in the Nusrat refugee camp in central Gaza. Sources told Al Jazeera that a total of 28 Palestinians were killed in central and southern Gaza. Look at all that Hamas. Hamas, y'all. That's Hamas. Self-defense. Israeli strikes also hit northern Gaza, killing several Palestinians in Gaza City, according to Palestinian news agency Wafa. An Israeli attack on a gathering of civilians in the Al-Shadi camp west of Gaza City killed at least 2. On Tuesday night, an Israeli strike on a building sheltering displaced Palestinians, Deir al-Balah, killed at least 13 Palestinians. Mani Mahmoud, an Al Jazeera reporter in central Gaza, said there was a cautious optimism among Palestinians over the reports of a ceasefire deal being close. Everybody's anxious and waiting, but there are still people who keep saying that they have been let down so many times in the past. Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. Expect the worst, you won't be disappointed, right? There's still caution surrounding their optimism, given that there was no ceasefire deal in the past. They remember when they were told the last time there were talks in Cairo, the Israeli military invaded the northern part of the Gaza Strip, Mahmoud said. Gaza's health ministry said in its daily update, which it releases about midday Gaza time, that Israeli strikes killed at least 61 Palestinians and wounded 281 over the past 24 hours, a total that includes casualties from Monday. The health ministry's numbers only account for dead and wounded Palestinians brought to hospitals and morgues. It doesn't account for the people under the rubble. A new study published in The Lancet found the health ministry's numbers were a significant undercount, likely by 41%. We told you about that. The study said that as of October 24th, the true death toll was likely over 70,000, which only accounts for violent deaths, not indirect deaths caused by the U.S.-backed Israeli siege. That's from Dave DeCamp over there at antiwar.com. Check them out. Good people over there trying to get the news to you, just like we're trying to do. Speaking of, as we turn to our whiny bitch news, Israel's Ben Gvir threatens to quit government over ceasefire deal. On Tuesday, Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben Gvir threatened to quit the government if Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu agreed to a hostage and ceasefire deal that's being negotiated in Qatar, and called for Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich to join him. Ben Gvir has been opposed to any kind of ceasefire deal in Gaza, as he favors the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from Gaza and the establishment of Jewish settlements. In a post on the tweeters, he took credit for preventing a deal like this from happening earlier. Over the past year, through our political power, we have managed to prevent this deal from coming to fruition time after time, he said. Ben Gvir's Jewish Power Party and Smotrich's Religious Zionism Party have had significant leverage over Netanyahu since if they leave the government, the coalition would lose the majority in the Knesset, which would potentially lead to new elections. So if they left, then Netanyahu would be fucked. Smotrich has also come out strongly against the ceasefire deal, but did not threaten to quit the government if it's signed. I call on my friend Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich to join me in full cooperation against the terrible deal being crafted, and to inform the Prime Minister clearly and firmly that if the deal goes through, we will resign from the government together, Ben Gvir said. Ben Gvir said the only way Netanyahu won't sign the deal is if the force opposing it is large enough to prevent him from doing so. Yair Lapid, the former prime minister who leads the opposition, has stated that he would help Netanyahu stay in power if he agreed to a ceasefire deal. I offered him a political safety net for a hostage deal. This offer is valid now more than ever. If Netanyahu wants to and can make a deal, he and I know how to close the details of the safety net in half an hour, Lapid said on Monday. Ben Gvir acknowledged that even if he and Smotrich unite, we will not bring down Netanyahu, but this move is our only chance to prevent its implementation and, in fact, to prevent the surrender of the state of Israel to Hamas. Probably should have put that in the propaganda block, but let them quit. Who cares, right? Fucking whiny bitches. And in a measure of pettiness by the Israeli government, Israel refuses to release the body of Yahya Sinwar as part of the Gaza deal. And you may remember him being murdered last year. Israel will not hand over the body of deceased Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar as part of any ceasefire agreement to end the devastating war in Gaza. Hamas is pressing for the release of the body of its former leader during the first phase of a prisoner exchange deal being negotiated in Qatar, a demand that was quickly dismissed by the Israeli government. It will not happen, period, a government source was quoted as saying by Israeli media. Sinwar was killed in battle with Israeli forces in Gaza last October. The report comes amid rising speculation that the two sides may be on the cusp of an agreement to end the 15-month war ahead of Donald Trump coming in next week. Mediators reportedly handed Hamas and Israel a final draft of the deal Monday ahead of further talks on Tuesday, which was yesterday, which are being attended by officials in the Biden administration and the incoming Trump team. Disagreements over the release of Palestinian prisoners in Israel and Israeli captives held by Hamas in Gaza have been a key roadblock to ending the war. And So this goes more into what some of the details of the negotiations with 33 Israelis. Israel holds thousands of Palestinians in indefinite detention, while 94 of the 251 captives taken by Hamas at the start of the war are thought to remain in Gaza. The Palestinian militant group handed over 105 civilians, and Israel released 240 prisoners, mainly women and children, during a short-lived ceasefire in November 2023. Under the first phase of the truce, Hamas is expected to free those 33 Israelis in exchange for the hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. Israel is pushing for the deportation of an unknown number of Palestinian detainees, including high-profile prisoners such as Marwan Barghouti, as well as Sinwar's brother Mohammed from Gaza. The guy's name is Mohammed from Gaza, according to Al Arabiya. Hamas has demanded that Israel release Barghouti, seen by many as a potential future Palestinian leader, as part of the deal. Israel has agreed to improve the prison conditions for Palestinian detainees, which has sharply deteriorated under the extremist National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, according to the Saudi outlet. Israel has killed more than 46,000 Palestinians since launching its attack on the Strip on October 7th. An offensive which UN officials and international human rights monitors say amounts to genocide. But not that lady at the ICJ. No. She said, no, everything's cool, bruh. Everything's cool, my man. Don't even sweat it, Betty. The Swedish, known for IKEA and Swedish meatballs, delicious. They might be getting in the mix too, as Swedish dockworkers threaten a blockade to and from Israel. Look at that. Look at all that. All that those cars? Yeah, those are all cars. Sweden's Dockworkers Union has announced an embargo of military material to and from the Israeli occupation. According to the union, the blockade, which will go into force on January 27th, is being implemented in solidarity with the Palestinian trade union movement in response to the war on Gaza. It's unknown which exact items would be affected, but according to Chairman Martin Berg, the union will take precautions. This means that we will not give special consideration to economic interests for Swedish companies and public institutions, but that we will, in cases of doubt about goods on their way to or from Israel, whether they are civilian or military character, refuse to load or unload them, according to the press release. So Sweden, or at least the Swedish dockworkers, are doing their part. As some of the ports, the Yemenis have, been blockading, the entrance for goods and services as well. So you're starting to see more and more of these countries coming together and fighting the Zionist bullshit. Meanwhile, hey, Bella, good to see you. Hope you guys are doing well. So the saga in South Korea continues as the ex-president, or their current president, has finally been arrested. Stop this deal. That's funny. Everybody loves South Korea. Everybody loves martial law. I talk to everybody. Everybody says it. Former South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol has been arrested after a dramatic and drawn-out showdown with law enforcement officials. Police and corruption officers early today scaled the walls of his residential compound, where he had been holed up for nearly 2 weeks, evading arrest, and after a short-lived declaration of martial law on December 3rd. The officers broke through the barbed wire and barricades his security personnel had put up. Hundreds of officers pushed past Yoon's small army of personal security to take the leader into custody after a court issued a warrant for his detention. The former president's imposition of martial law had rattled the country, and he was swiftly impeached and removed from his duties. Yoon faces numerous criminal investigations for insurrection. He's a storied former prosecutor who led the Conservative People Party, Power Party, to election in 2022, despite a lack of political experience. Before taking the country's top job, Yoon was called Mr. Clean not because he shaved his head and wore a white shirt, but he was called Mr. Clean for prosecuting an array of prominent businessmen and politicians. The former leader with affluent roots shot to national fame in 2016 when, as chief investigator probing then-President Park Geun-hye for corruption, he was asked if he was out for revenge and responded that prosecutors were not gangsters. While in office, the former president faced challenges in advancing his agenda in opposition-controlled parliament and was dogged by personal scandals as well as rifts within his own party. After more than 3,000 police officers were mobilized to break into Yoon's compound, the leader was arrested and taken in for questioning. I decided to respond to the CIO's investigation despite it being an illegal investigation to prevent unsavory bloodshed, Yoon said in a pre-recorded video statement released shortly after his arrest. He referred to the Corruption Investigation Office for High-Ranking Officials, which is heading the criminal probe. According to Al Jazeera's Patrick Falk, that's an unfortunate last name. Fuck. Reporting from Seoul, this was the second attempt by investigators to bring him in after they tried to arrest him a week ago. Yoon faces charges of insurrection, the only one that South Korean presidents are not immune from. His arrest marks the first one of a sitting Korean president. So they finally got him. Despite polls showing that a majority of South Koreans disapprove of Yoon's martial law declaration and support his impeachment, the political standoff has given oxygen to his supporters, and his PPP party has seen a revival in recent weeks. Support for the PPP stood at 40.8% in the latest Real Meter poll released on Monday, while the main opposition Democratic Party's support stood at 42.2%, a difference that is within the poll's margin of error and down from a gap of 10.8 percentage points last week. So Yoon not really doing much service to his party. The narrowed margin suggests that a presidential election could be close if Yoon is formally removed from office by the Constitutional Court examining the legality of his impeachment. Previously, in the days after the brief martial law declaration, the Democratic Party's leader, Lee Jae-myung, was widely viewed as the firm favorite. Firm giggity. Beyond the political effects, the weeks-long government turmoil has rattled Asia's fourth largest economy. Some of Yoon's supporters have also drawn parallels between him and Trump, echoing claims by Trump that the former and incoming American president has been the target of a witch hunt by elites who have long controlled the levers of power. South Korea is one of Washington's key security partners in East Asia. South Korea currently has an acting president, finance minister, and deputy prime minister, Choi Sang-mok. Choi has been in the role since December 27th when the legislature voted to impeach Yoon's initial successor, Han Duck-soo, over his refusal to immediately fill 3 vacancies on the Constitutional Court. Man, they just impeaching everybody. I thought America loved to impeach people. They all up in it. What's up, CJ? Good to see you. Thank you for that. Happy Wednesday to you. It's also Martin Luther King's birthday, too. His actual birthday, not that January 20th 3-day weekend bullshit. Han had been acting president since Yoon was impeached on December 14th over his martial law declaration, and his presidential powers were suspended. After Yoon was arrested, Choi met with diplomats from the group of 7 nations, including the U.S., Japan, Britain, and Germany, as well as a representative of the European Union, to reassure them that the government was stable. As local broadcasters reported that Yoon's detention was imminent, the president's supporters descended upon his residence, chanting, "Stop the steal." It is like Trump. Stop the steal, stop the steal. An illegal warrant, and waving glow sticks alongside South Korean and U.S. flags. The Stop the Steal slogans referred to Yoon's unsubstantiated claims of election fraud in April's parliamentary elections, which the opposition won. One of the reasons Yoon gave to justify his martial law declaration. It was also used by Trump and his supporters as he falsely claimed he won the 2020 presidential election in U.S. So he's the South Korean Trump, right? He should get that fucked up hairstyle, too. Police estimate as many as 6,500 supporters of the former president turned out overnight, urging their leader to keep fighting on, Fox said. He said, what the fuck? Some of his supporters also lay on the ground outside the residential compound's main gate. It's very sad to see our country falling apart, Kim Woo-sub, a 70-year-old retiree protesting Yoon's arrest outside his residence, told the Reuters news agency. I still have high expectations for Trump to support our president. Election fraud is something they have in common, but also the U.S. needs South Korea to fight China, he said. Yeah, well, good for you. Well, how old are you? 70 years old? Yeah, you won't be around too much longer. Damn. I thought it was cold outside. Minor scuffles broke out between pro-Yoon protesters and police near the residence, according to a witness at the scene. Many other South Koreans are angry and believe Yoon has avoided facing responsibility for his failed martial law. Fok said. I'm just going to keep saying Fok. I think it's wrong for the leader of a rebellion to not face any legal consequences, and even though an arrest warrant has been issued, he has continued to resist that. Cho Soon-ah, an anti-Yoon protester, told Al Jazeera. The Democratic Party, meanwhile, hailed Yoon's detention, with a top official calling it the first step to restoring constitutional and legal order. The country's parliament speaker echoed those sentiments. We should concentrate our efforts on stabilizing state affairs and restoring people's livelihoods, Woo Won-shik said. Authorities now have 48 hours to question Yoon, after which they must seek a warrant to detain him on the charge of attempting a rebellion, or he will be released. If Yoon is formally arrested, investigators may extend his detention to 20 days before transferring the case to public prosecutors for indictment. According to a CIO official, however, Yoon is refusing to talk and has not agreed to have interviews with investigators recorded on video. Man, what is up with this dude? Yoon's lawyers have said his initial arrest warrant is illegal because it was issued by a court in the wrong jurisdiction, and the team set up to investigate him had no legal mandate to do so. Presidential guards were stationed on the CIO floor where Yoon is being questioned, a CIO official said, but he will likely be held at the Seoul Detention Center, where other high-profile South Korean figures, including former President Park and Samsung Electronics Chairman J.Y. Lee, have also spent time. Ooh, fancy place at the Seoul Detention Center. That's right. They have free Wi-Fi and donuts in the morning if you're hungry. No free coffee, though. Yoon faces the death penalty or life in prison if found guilty of insurrection. In a parallel investigation, the Constitutional Court on Tuesday launched a trial to rule on Parliament's impeachment of Yoon. If the court endorses the impeachment, Yoon would finally lose the presidency, and an election would have to be held within 60 days. The opening session of the trial was adjourned on Tuesday after only a brief hearing, as Yoon declined to attend, but proceedings could last 4 months. Yes, so South Korea, wow. Everybody talks shit about North Korea and dictators, but it's South Korea who's doing martial law. That's a little funny. It's just like, how does that work? Another country has joined BRICS. It's Indonesia. Indonesia, come on down. You're the next contestant on the BRICS is right. What now for West Papuan goal of independence? I gotta stick that word in there, Papuan. Indonesia officially joined the BRICS consortium last week, marking a significant milestone in its foreign relations. In a statement released a day later on January 7th, the Indonesian Minister of Foreign Affairs said that this membership reflected Indonesia's dedication to strengthening multilateral cooperation and its growing influence in global politics. The ministry highlighted that joining BRICS aligned with Indonesia's independent and proactive foreign policy, which seeks to maintain balanced relations with major powers while prioritizing national interests. This pivotal move shows Jakarta's efforts to enhance its international presence as an emerging power within a select group of global influencers. Traditionally, Indonesia has embraced a non-aligned stance while bolstering its military and economic strength through collaborations with both Western and Eastern nations, including the U.S., China, and Russia. By joining BRICS, Indonesia clearly signals a shift from its non-aligned status, aligning itself with a coalition of emerging powers poised to challenge and redefine the existing global geopolitical landscape dominated by a Western neoliberal order led by the United States. Indonesia joining boosts BRICS membership to 10 countries, but there are also partnerships. Supporters of a multipolar world championed by China, Russia, and their allies may view Indonesia's entry into BRICS as a significant victory. In contrast, advocates of the U.S.-led unipolar world, often referred to as the rules-based international order, are likely to see Indonesia's decision as a regrettable shift that could trigger retaliatory actions from the United States. Uh-oh, somebody gonna bring democracy to a place that probably already has democracy. Democracy in quotes, because we all know what democracy means. In that context, the future will determine how Indonesia balances its relations with these two superpowers. However, there is considerable concern about the potential fallout for Indonesia from its long-standing U.S. allies. And this from Trump. Was the real idea that BRICS countries are trying to move away from the dollar while we stand by and watch it over. We require a commitment from these countries that they will neither create a new BRICS currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty U.S. dollar, or they will face 100% tariffs and should expect to say goodbye to selling into the wonderful U.S. economy. They could go find another sucker. There is no chance that the BRICS will replace the U.S. dollar in international trade, and any country that tries should wave goodbye to America. And I was reading somewhere, too, they're not trying to replace the dollar. They're just trying to give you an alternative. And apparently alternatives are not good either. Hemp Car over on Rockfin. What's up, brother? U.S. already backed death squads in Indonesia. That's true. The smaller Pacific Island nations, which Indonesia has been endeavoring to win over in a bid to thwart support for West Papuan independence, may also become entangled in the crosshairs of geostrategic rivalries, and the response to Indonesia's membership in the BRICS alliance will prove critical for the fate of West Papua, or Papu. I think it's Papua. I could be wrong. The critical questions facing the Pacific Islanders are perhaps related to their loyalties. Are they aligning themselves with Beijing or Washington? And in what ways could their decisions influence the delicate balance of power in the ongoing competition between great powers, ultimately altering the Melanesian destiny of the Papuan people? For the Papuans, I just like saying Papuans. Indonesia's membership in BRICS or any other global or regional forums is irrelevant as long as the illegal occupation of their land continues driving them towards extinction. Okay, the pressing question for Papuans is which force will ultimately dismantle Indonesia's unlawful hold on their sovereignty? While Indonesia's BRICS alliance open new paths for Papuan liberation fighters to re-engage with the West in ways not seen since the Cold War? Or does the membership indicate a deeper entrenchment of Papuans' fate with China's influence, making it almost impossible for any dream of Papuans' independence? While forecasting future with certainty is difficult on these critical questions need to be considered in this new complex geopolitical landscape, as the ultimate fate of West Papua is what is truly at stake. Indonesia's membership in BRICS may signify a great victory for those advocating for a multipolar world, challenging the hegemony of Western powers led by the U.S. Its membership could augment Indonesia's capacity to frame the West Papuan issue as an internal matter among BRICS members within the principle of non-interference in domestic affairs. Such backing could provide Jakarta with a cushion of diplomatic protection against international censure, particularly from Western nations regarding its policies in West Papua. However, it's also crucial to note that for more than 6 decades, despite the Western world priding itself on being a champion of freedom and human rights, no nation has been permitted to voice concern or hold Indonesia accountable for the atrocities committed against indigenous Papuans. The pressing question to consider is what or who silences the 193 member states of the UN from intervening to save the Papuans from potential eradication at the hands of Indonesia. Is the U.S. and its allies, or is it China, Russia, and their allies, or the UN itself? And this goes on more about that situation, as far as what Indonesia wants to do. And I'll have the links up after the show that you can check out the rest of that. So it just kind of goes more into analysis on it. And, we're a news show. We leave the analysis up to the experts. So, Iran and Russia have always, they've been cozy as of late, especially with what's been going on in the West. Oops, wrong button. So now they have a strategic partnership treaty, and this is some details about that. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian and Russian President Vladimir Putin are scheduled to meet in Moscow on Friday to sign a strategic partnership treaty that has been years in the making. The long-awaited cooperation agreement will govern relations between the two countries for the next 20 years, Iran's ambassador to Moscow said. This is not the first time Iran has signed a comprehensive long-term agreement with another country. In 2021, Iran and China entered into a 25-year deal covering multiple sectors. However, it faced public scrutiny and criticism as some observers argued that Tehran had made excessive concessions. At the time, officials clarified that the deal was merely a roadmap and did not include detailed agreements. There are now similar public concerns about the provisions of the agreement with Russia, particularly given Moscow's limited popularity amongst Iranians. This sentiment is rooted in historical events, including the loss of several Iranian provinces in the Caucasus region, such as Azerbaijan, to Russia in the early 19th century. Speaking to Middle East Eye, an informed Iranian official said the draft of the agreement with Russia was finalized after 20 to 30 rounds of talks over the course of 4 to 5 years. The agreement requires approval from the Iranian parliament. According to the government source, the agreement consists of 47 articles addressing a wide range of areas, including cooperation in technology, information and cybersecurity, peaceful nuclear energy collaboration, counterterrorism efforts, regional cooperation, environmental issues, the Caspian Sea, and combating money laundering and organized crime. Both Russia and Iran are under heavy Western sanctions that include restrictions on their vital energy industries. Other provisions relate to defense and military cooperation, such as training and joint initiatives, though the specific details will require further agreements and contracts. He further noted that the agreement includes a clause prohibiting both parties from supporting or assisting aggressors against each other, as well as from allowing their territories to be used as bases for such actions. One of the key clauses is the pact pertains to territorial integrity, a point of particular significance for Iran, due to the ongoing claims by the United Arab Emirates over the 3 Gulf islands that Iran has controlled since 1971. This clause, however, does not include recognition of Crimea, which Russia seized from Ukraine in 2014, or other disputed regions. Additionally, both countries will commit to opposing unlawful extraterritorial sanctions, including U.S. secondary sanctions, and to supporting each other in international forums. However, an Iranian foreign policy analyst told Middle East Eye that this clause could face challenges if UN Security Council sanctions are reinstated, given that Russia is a Security Council member and is obligated to uphold its own standing. This could occur if European countries activate the snapback mechanism to reimpose sanctions under the JCPOA, a 2015 nuclear agreement between Iran and world powers, before October of this year, when the snapback provision is set to expire. There have been fears that recent events in Syria would impact relations between Tehran and Moscow, especially following a leaked audio recording of an Iranian commander criticizing Russia's actions during the rebel offensive that toppled their Syrian ally, Bashar al-Assad. In the recording, Behrouz Esbati, an Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps general, said Iran had asked for 1,000 Kalashnikov rifles from Russia to secure a critical front line against rebel advances, but the request was denied. Russia also refused entry to an Iranian plane carrying weapons to Syria, the commander said. Esbati further criticized Russia's airstrike strategy in Syria, saying that instead of targeting key concentrations of HTS fighters and weakening proxy forces backed by Turkey and Qatar, Russia's raids primarily hit residential areas and deserts. Addressing the leaked documents, the Iranian government source said the Russians have their complaints about us, saying we didn't perform well on the ground, and we in turn have complaints about them. The source added that these differences will not hinder more cooperation between the two countries. Nematollah Izadi, the last Iranian ambassador to the Soviet Union, told local media that Pezeshkian's visit and the signing of the Strategic Operation Pact specifically ahead of Trump's return to power next week serve as a trust-building measure towards Russia. He added that the move aims to reassure Moscow and Putin that Iran will not abandon its relationship with the country, even if in the event of de-escalation with the West and the U.S. However, one former Iranian diplomat based in Europe expressed concerns about potential negative impact this agreement could have on ongoing Iran-Europe negotiations aimed at resolving the nuclear dispute. He also noted that most of Iran's neighboring countries would not welcome a successful outcome of these negotiations. The lifting of sanctions and the subsequent expansion of economic and trade activities increased energy exports and attraction of foreign investment would enhance Iran's geopolitical influence at the expense of its neighbors, it said. So everybody thinks that, Iran and Russia are all buddy-buddy, like in the cop movies. But, they're skeptical about each other just like everybody else. Delicious. So, even though Ukraine is getting their ass handed to them in Russia, they're still they're still attacking Russia. But and now this one, the latest one is probably one of the biggest ones they've had so far. Ukraine launches largest air attacks on Russia since the start of the war. Who's this guy? I like this guy's haircut. Just the guy got that little Mr. T thing going on. Ukraine's military has claimed its largest air attacks yet on Russian territory since the start of the war nearly 3 years ago. As Donald Trump prepares to take office next week, the Russian Defense Ministry on Tuesday said it will retaliate for the large-scale missile and drone attacks overnight and accused Ukraine of again using missiles supplied by the U.S. and the United Kingdom. And they have retaliated, as a matter of fact. I didn't get to that story today, but they launched like about 40 to 60 missiles there into Ukraine. The Russian military said most of the projectiles were shot down with attacks targeting multiple cities and industrial sites. The Russian cities of Saratov and Engels were reportedly hit, with some damage caused to factories in the area. Some schools were forced to switch to remote learning, while several airports were forced to temporarily halt air traffic. Ukrainian forces had attacked the same region last week as well, claiming to have struck an oil depot serving an air base for Russian bomber planes. The attack caused a large fire that had only been put out a day before the latest strikes. Ukraine's military said yesterday that it also hit points in Bryansk, Tula, and Tatarstan with a chemical factory that makes rocket fuel and ammunition for Russia's army among the targets. Rocket fuel malt liquor. Damn. Who knows that reference? Ukrainian chemical. There was a Ukrainian chemical attack on a Russian defense plant, but didn't work out. So Russia's Federal Security Service has said it has foiled a Ukrainian terrorist plot targeting the staff of a Russian defense industry enterprise in the city of Yaroslavl. The suspect is a Russian citizen who was working for Kiev and who planned to poison workers of the facility with toxic substances, according to a statement from the agency Tuesday. The man was detained after receiving 2 containers with dangerous chemicals from a cache prepared by the Ukrainian Special Services. The FSB said the substances in question can cause potentially fatal respiratory burns, it added. The suspect planned to pour the chemicals into the air ducts of vehicles driven by employees of the defense enterprise, the agency said. The terrorist activities were coordinated from the territory of Ukraine via foreign internet messaging apps, FSB stressed. Yaroslavl is located on the Volga River, around 160 miles northeast of Moscow. The city, which has a population of over 570,000, is the capital of the Yaroslavl region. It's not the first time that Kiev spy services have tried to use toxic chemicals to carry out attacks inside Russia since the escalation of the Ukraine conflict, according to the FSB. I always want to call them the FBS. Previously, a Ukrainian agent was detained for allegedly trying to poison food and drinks at a gathering of graduates from a military pilot school in the southern city of Armavir, the agency said. 4 people who were planning to contaminate food products prepared by volunteers for Russian frontline troops were also arrested in St. Petersburg. Last February, a terrorist attack using the 3-quinylclidinyl benzolate military agent, I'm going to call it 3Q, which NATO calls BZ, oh, that works too, was reportedly thwarted in Russia's Zaporozhye region. U.S.-designed chemicals were seized from the suspects, according to the agency. So, yeah. It's going to be interesting once Trump comes in. He said he's going to negotiate this thing and get it done within 24 hours or whatever. That's not going to happen. But we will see when we see. Meanwhile, Zelensky and Macron from France discussed the idea of French troops deploying to Ukraine. Not a good idea. Not a great plan. On Monday, Ukrainian idiot Volodymyr Zelensky said he spoke with his French counterpart, Pepe Le Pew, and discussed the idea of a possible deployment of French troops to Ukraine as part of a potential future security guarantee. Fuckhead said he and Pepe discussed achieving peace and developing effective security guarantees. Ukrainian president wrote on the tweeters,
"As one such guarantee, we discussed the French initiative to deploy military contingents in Ukraine. We addressed practical steps for its implementation, potential expansion, and the involvement of other nations in this effort. Give me money, I'm out of cocaine."
Russia would never agree to a NATO deployment in Ukraine as part of a potential future peace plan, since one of its main demands for a deal is Ukrainian neutrality. Wall Street Journal recently reported that Trump had suggested European troops should be sent to Ukraine to monitor a future ceasefire, but Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has already rejected the idea, saying Moscow wasn't satisfied with the proposal. Last year, Macron was calling for a NATO troops deployment to Ukraine to train Ukrainian soldiers and said at one point that he was finalizing a plan. But he appeared to back down after warnings from Russia that any French troops would be considered legitimate targets. The Discord leaks revealed that as of March 2023, there were a small number of NATO special operation forces inside Ukraine, including 15 French troops. But what Macron had been calling was for a larger public deployment of Ukraine, and also he wanted cats with white stripes painted down their back so he could sexually molest them. What happened? Sorry. Dick Dastardly French accent. So, is this really? Wait a minute. What's this? Hang on just a second, folks. I think I got something out of order. I could be wrong. Okay, no, we're right. All right, we're right on the track. You know, you get older and the brain starts going. So the U.S. is to ban smart cars equipped with Russian and Chinese technology. So basically, they're going to have Fred Flintstone cars with a hole in the floorboard so you can stick your feet through and go dooga-dang. And then you go to the drive-through and you get that big ass Bronto ribs, delicious. So yeah, that's because without Russian and Chinese technology, we're pretty much screwed because most of our shit comes from China. Excuse me. The Biden administration has finalized a rule that effectively bans new smart personal vehicles powered by Chinese and Russian technology from U.S. roads, and is taking steps to allow President-elect Donald Trump to expand these restrictions to include commercial vehicles. According to Bloomberg, the U.S. Department of Commerce's Bureau of Industry and Security announced its final rule on Tuesday, stating in a release that technologies from China and Russia pose an undue and unacceptable risk to U.S. national security. Which is funny because, like, a lot of stuff that the military gets, like parts and stuff that they need, they get it from China. I find that interesting. U.S. officials argue that modern vehicles which contain devices linking them to the internet are similar to computers and can collect sensitive data, including about drivers or owners, violating consumer privacy or allowing foreign adversaries to manipulate cars remotely. See, they don't want China or Russia to do that. They said, look, we're already going to be doing that ourselves, so we don't need you guys to come in and do it. The rule prohibits importing or selling vehicles connected to specific hardware or software components with a sufficient nexus to China or Russia, or the sale of those components separately. It also bars manufacturers linked to Russia or China from selling vehicles made in the U.S. within the U.S. The Department of Commerce stated that it plans to initiate a separate process focused on commercial vehicles such as buses and trucks. The incoming administration will have to come up with a way to finalize these restrictions. Yeah. So, things are getting interesting, especially when we're talking about a lack of precious resources that will allow the making of chips, which has been a bone of contention about Chinese chips and the like. So, and then you throw AI into the mix too. That's always a fun time. So let's come back home and talk about what's the update that's going on in LA. What's the latest? Who are the victims? And what's next? So firefighters in LA County are preparing for another round of powerful winds as they continue to battle wildfires. Palisades blaze is still the largest. It's been burning for a week. On Monday, another fire broke out in neighboring Ventura County, prompting more evacuation orders. Total area burned by the Palisades, Eaton, and Hearst fires is about 16,425 hectares, over 40,000 acres, an area larger than Paris. At least 25 people now have lost their lives due to the wildfires, with 8 deaths linked to the Palisades fire and 17 to the Eaton fire. The Eaton fire is the Altadena, in the Altadena area. According to California's Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, the Eaton fire is now the most destructive and deadliest wildfire in Southern California's history, with the Palisades fire ranking as the second most destructive, even though the Palisades is bigger. The Cedar Fire of October 2003 previously held the record as the most deadly and destructive wildfire in the region, destroying nearly 2,820 structures and killing 15 people in San Diego County. 3 major wildfires are still burning, as we said. Palisades Fire on the western outskirts of the city has burned through over 23,000 acres. It's only at 17% containment. The Eaton Fire, like we said, in the foothills east of the city, over 14,000 acres burned with containment at 35%. The Hearst Fire has burned almost 800 acres and is about contained at 97%. In Ventura County, the Auto wildfire, which started on January 13th on Monday, has expanded to 61 acres, up from 5 acres on Tuesday, and is now 47% contained. About 150,000 residents in LA County remain under evacuation orders, more than 700 individuals seeking shelter in 9 facilities. The National Weather Service in LA issued a red flag warning for LA and Ventura counties, effective today from 3 a.m. to 3 p.m. local time. We talked about this too, that those winds were going to, the Santa Anas were going to start kicking back up again, and how particularly potent these winds have been. Like we said, if you've lived in California or people that lived out there, they probably talked about this a good bit, about like these winds, right? And they come from the desert, they funnel through the hills and become concentrated and more powerful. Anyway, right? That's normal. But I was watching something the other day. This guy was talking about low pressure system down south of where it's all happening. And then apparently there's a high pressure ridge, and that also is fueling those winds out of the desert like that. So it's just and then it's just like a perfect storm too, because it dried out all the vegetation there, and that's why these fires are spreading so quickly. And of course, the incompetence of the California government for not having enough water on hand to actually put out these fires. It's a good question, Zelle. Are kids having fire days from school? Or are they being bused to still standing schools? Well, if there's evacuation, I guess it really depends on the location, but I would assume like in the Palisades, a lot of those people have already set up somewhere else. But I'll see if I can try and get some information on that. Meanwhile, Big Pharma, big fuck ya. FTC report shows Big Pharma middlemen jack up prices by up to 7,700%. This is from Common Dreams. Brett Wilkins. The U.S. Federal Trade Commission on Tuesday published the second part of its investigation into how prescription drug middlemen are marking up the prices of specialty generic drugs dispensed at their affiliated pharmacies by hundreds and in some cases thousands of %, underscoring what advocates say is the need for urgent action by policymakers. The FTC's second interim staff report on consolidated pharmacy benefit managers, the PBMs, found that the three largest of these middlemen, CVS Health's Caremark RX, Cigna Group's Express Scripts, and United Health. Oh, United Health is back in there. United Health Group's Optum RX marked up two specialty generic cancer drugs. They marked them up by thousands of % and then paid their affiliated pharmacies hundreds of millions of dollars of dispensing revenue in excess of estimated acquisition costs for each drug annually. Of the specialty generic drugs analyzed in this report and dispensed by the big three, PBM's affiliated pharmacies for commercial health plan members between 2020 and 2022, 63% were reimbursed at rates marked up by more than 100% over their estimated acquisition costs, while 22% were marked up by more than 1,000%, the report states. For the pulmonary hypertension drug tadalafil, that's generic Adcirca, for example, pharmacies purchased the drug at an average of $27 in 2022, yet the big three PBMs marked up the drug by $2,079 and paid their affiliated pharmacies $2,106 on average for a 30-day supply of the medication on commercial claims, the publication notes. That's a staggering average markup of over 7,700%. 7,700%. Such significant markups allow... That's not a markup, that is a fuck up. Such significant markups allowed the big three PBMs and their affiliated specialty pharmacies to generate more than $7.3 billion in revenue from dispensing drugs in excess of the drug's estimated acquisition costs from 2017 to 2022, according to the FTC. The big three PBMs netted such significant revenues, all while patient, employer, and other healthcare plan sponsor payments for drugs steadily increased annually. The new analysis follows a July 2024 report that revealed big three PBM affiliated pharmacies received 68% of the dispensing revenue generated by specialty drugs in 2023, a 14% increase from 2016. The FTC staff's second interim report finds that the three major pharmacy benefit managers hiked costs for a wide range of life-saving drugs, including medications to treat heart disease and cancer, FTC Chair Linda Kahn said in a statement yesterday. The FTC should keep using its tools to investigate practices that may inflate drug costs, squeeze independent pharmacies, and deprive Americans of affordable, accessible health care, and should act swiftly to stop any illegal conduct. Kahn's time as chair is limited. Republican U.S. President Donald Trump's inauguration is next week, and he has named Andrew Ferguson as the next FTC chair. As Ferguson is already on the commission, his elevation to chair won't require Senate confirmation. Greg Lopez, spokesman for the Pharmaceutical Care Management Association, a PBM lobby group, said Tuesday that it's clear this report again fails to consider the entirety of the prescription drug supply chain and makes sweeping assertions about the role of PBMs disconnected from a full appreciation of their critical cost-saving role for employers, unions, taxpayers, and patients. Blah, 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 blah. Last September, the FTC sued the Big Three and their affiliated group purchasing organizations for allegedly, quote, engaging in anti-competitive and unfair rebating practices that have artificially inflated the list price of insulin drugs, compared patients' access to lower list price products, and shifted the cost of high insulin list prices to vulnerable patients. FTC Office of Policy Planning Director Hannah Garden Monheit said Tuesday that the problem of PBM price inflation is growing at an alarming rate, which means there is an urgent need for policymakers to address it. Oh, you mean like, putting on restrictions and stuff like that? No, that they're paying the politicians. That's why they're getting away with it. To that end, U.S. Senators Maria Cantwell and Chuck Grassley introduced the Pharmacy Benefit Manager Transparency Act of 2023, a bill backed by the AARP aimed at increasing transparency and holding PBMs accountable for deceptive and unfair practices that drive up prescription drug costs and force independent pharmacies out of business. Responding to the FTC report, Emma Freer, Senior Policy Analyst for Healthcare at the American Economic Liberties Project, a corporate accountability and antitrust advocacy group, said Tuesday that the FTC's second interim report lays bare the blatant profiteering by PBM giants, which are marking up life-saving drugs like cancer, HIV, and multiple sclerosis treatments by thousands of percent and forcing patients to pay the price. Don't forget insulin. They jacked up the price of insulin, too. By steering prescriptions for the most expensive specialty generic drugs to their own pharmacies, PBMs are raking in billions in excess revenue, $7.3 billion over the last 5 years, while squeezing independent pharmacies and leaving patients and health plans sponsors with skyrocketing costs, Freer added. This report is a call to action for policymakers to dismantle these exploitative schemes, outlaw the rebate system driving up prices, and restore fairness and affordability to the U.S. healthcare system. Yes, good luck with that. I think you're going to need a lot of luck with that. You're going to have to, get these people to not take drug money in Washington. Meanwhile, in Haiti, we've been talking about the conflict and turmoil that's going on there. Now Haiti's displacement has surpassed 1 million people. The number of people in Haiti who have fled their homes has risen threefold in the last year to more than 1 million, according to the UN. The UN's International Organization for Migration, the IOM, said in a report released on Tuesday that its latest data reveals that over 1 million people, many displaced multiple times, are struggling amidst an intensifying humanitarian crisis. The figures show that in the capital, Port-au-Prince, displacement has surged by 87%, driven by relentless gang violence, as well as the collapse of essential services, especially healthcare, and escalating food shortages, according to the agency, children making up more than half of the displaced population. And yeah, it's always kids that are they're always the victims of things like this. Doesn't matter, around the world, it's always children who suffer. In December 2023, we recorded around 315,000 people were displaced from violence, IOM spokesman Kennedy Okoth Omandi told reporters. Come on. 1 year since, we have seen the number triple to over 1 million people who have now been displaced because of gang violence in Haiti. Last week, the UN said gang violence was responsible for the death of more than 5,600 people in 2024, with thousands more injured or kidnapped. Armed gangs maintain control of most of Port-au-Prince following an outbreak of violence last year. At the same time, the police are also accused of perpetrating violence against gang suspects as the ongoing conflict serves to worsen the political instability that has plagued the island nation for decades. The IOM noted that 83% of displaced Haitians depend on already overburdened host communities, including acquaintances, friends, and family, for shelter. The rest face harsh conditions in makeshift sites, which have increased from 73 to 108 within a year. Adding to the crisis, 200,000 Haitians were deported back to the country last year, further straining its already overwhelmed social services. Despite a Kenyan-led police support mission backed by the U.S. and the UN, violence has continued to soar. Well, if the U.S. is involved, of course there's going to be violence. Haiti needs sustained humanitarian assistance right now to save and protect lives, IOM Director General Amy Pope said. We must work together to address the root causes of the violence and instability that has led to so much death and destruction. The Haitian government, backed by the U.S. and other Caribbean nations, has also been calling for the UN Security Council to authorize a full-scale peacekeeping operation. But Russia and China, permanent members of the UNSC, have opposed the move, insisting that efforts to stop the gang violence should instead be focused on strengthening the Haitian police. So 1 million people displaced in Haiti, and Haiti's not a big place. Haiti is not a big place at all. Because and to have 1 million people displaced like that is insane. So, but like the report said, Haiti has been dealing with this kind of stuff for decades. It didn't help that I think it was a Hillary Clinton. They wanted like a pay raise. They wanted like a minimum wage, something like that. And Hillary Clinton put the kibosh on that. We're always fucking with other countries, and they're like, why can't they be like us? Because we keep fucking with them, and they don't want to be like us. This might be temporary good news, but we take what we can get. Biden to lift U.S. designation of Cuba as a state sponsor of terrorism. Joe Biden will relax sanctions targeting longtime foe Cuba days before Donald Trump takes office in a broad set of steps on Tuesday that he expects to lead to release of political prisoners in Havana. As part of the steps, Biden is reversing several hardline restrictions put in place by Trump. Those steps include notifying Congress of plans to lift the U.S. designation of Cuba as a state sponsor of terrorism, and undoing a Trump order that has restricted some financial transactions with some military and government-tied Cubans, according to a senior administration official. Biden was also set to suspend the ability of individuals to use U.S. courts to make claims for potentially confiscated property in Cuba following Fidel Castro's 1959 revolution. The steps were connected to the expected release by Cuba of a significant number of political prisoners following the communist-run government's talks with the Catholic Church. Cuba faced sharp criticism from rights groups, the U.S., and the European Union following the imprisonment of hundreds of protesters after riots on July 11th, 2021, the largest since Castro's revolution. The announcements just days before Biden leaves office marks his first real break in policy from Trump-era sanctions that have contributed to one of Cuba's worst economic crises. Trump may seek to revive the sanctions once in office. That's the thing about this, and he probably will. But in the short term, Biden's new measures were expected to give Havana more space to maneuver as it battles a crippling economic crisis. Trump placed Cuba on the U.S. state sponsor of terrorism list in 2021 in the final hours of his first term, saying Havana had repeatedly provided support for acts of international terrorism by harboring U.S. fugitives and Colombian rebel leaders. That is another reason why Trump is a piece of shit. Cuba denied the allegations, calling the designation a farce and seeking removal from the list, which carries a prohibition on U.S. economic aid, a ban on U.S. arms exports, and enough geopolitical downside to keep even Cuba's closest allies leery of doing business with the island. So, like I said, we'll see how long that lasts, because I'm pretty sure once Trumpy gets in there, they're just going to come right back. Meanwhile, Cuba has joined South Africa's genocide case against Israel at the ICJ, bringing it all full circle, folks. Cuba has officially declared its intention to intervene in South Africa's genocide case against Israel at the ICJ, the court announced yesterday. The case concerns the application of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide in Gaza. Under Article 63 of the ICJ statute, any state party to a convention being interpreted in a case has the right to intervene. The court's interpretation in such cases becomes binding on all intervening states as well as the original parties. Cuba, invoking Article 63 of the statute of the court, filed in the registry of the court a declaration of intervention in the case concerning application of the Convention of the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide in the Gaza Strip, the court said. In accordance with the court's procedures, South Africa and Israel have been invited to submit written observations on Cuba's intervention, as per Article 83 of the ICJ's rules. The case began on December 29th of 2023 when South Africa initiated legal proceedings against Israel, accusing it of genocide in Gaza. Several countries, including Nicaragua, Colombia, Libya, Mexico, Palestine, Spain, Turkey, and Ireland, have since joined the case. ICJ has since demanded Israel take all measures within its power to prevent genocide and incitement of genocide while it continues to investigate the claims made against the occupation state. So, Cuba jumping into the fray there. And you're going to see more and more of these countries get in on there. Like I said, I don't know, how, if anything is going to happen with the ICC or the ICJ or anything like that. You would hope that more of these arrests would continue, or at least would be pursuing these people. But, the tide is starting to turn, but it's taking a while. Just like everything else, it's real fucking slow. Meanwhile, in South Africa, or in Sudan, rescuers say more than 120 people killed by shelling near the capital. Sudan is a hell of a place, literally. Sudanese volunteer rescuers said shelling of an area of Omdurman, the capital Khartoum's twin city just across the Nile River, killed more than 120 people. The random shelling on Monday in western Omdurman resulted in the deaths of 120 civilians, according to the Ombada Emergency Response Room, part of a network of volunteer rescuers across the war-torn country. The network described the toll as preliminary and did not specify who was behind the attack. The rescuers said medical supplies were in critical short supply as health workers struggled to treat a large number of wounded people suffering from varying degrees of injuries. Fighting between the Army and the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, has escalated in recent weeks after more than 20 months of war in Sudan. Tens of thousands of people have been killed in the war, which has left the country on the brink of famine, according to aid agencies. Both the Army and the RSF have been accused of targeting civilians, including health workers, and indiscriminately shelling residential areas. What are they trying to pretend like they're Israel or something? Most of Omdurman is under Army control while the RSF holds the capital and part of the greater Khartoum area. Residents on both sides of the Nile have reported shelling across the river with bombs and shrapnel regularly striking homes and civilians. And finally, rescuers recovered 36 bodies and 82 survivors from South Africa gold mine. We've been seeing a lot of deaths in these mines lately, or at least more reports. South African rescuers have pulled 36 bodies and 82 survivors from a gold mine in 2 days of operations, police say, adding that the survivors would face illegal mining and immigration charges. After 9 bodies were recovered on Monday, 27 more were brought out from deep underground on Tuesday, according to police there. Police began laying siege to the mine about 90 miles southwest of Johannesburg, in the town of Stilfontein in August, and cut off food and water for months to force the miners to the surface to arrest them as part of a crackdown on illegal mining. Hundreds more survivors and dozens more bodies are still underground, according to a miners' rights group that issued footage on Monday showing corpses and skeletal survivors in the mine. Rescue operations, which involved the use of a metal cage to recover survivors and bodies from a mine shaft more than 1.2 miles underground, will continue for days. Police said they would provide a daily update on numbers. Typically, illegal mining takes place in mines that have been abandoned by companies because they are no longer commercially viable on a large scale. Unlicensed miners, often immigrants from other African countries, go in to extract whatever is left. So the South African government has said the siege of the Stilfontein mine is necessary to fight illegal mining, which mining minister Gwedi Mantashe described as the war on the economy. He estimated that the illicit precious metals trade was worth 60 billion rand. That's 3.17 billion dollars last year. One moment, please. Minister in the presidency, Kumbudzo Ntshavheni, said in November, "We're not sending help to criminals, we're going to smoke them out." But a court ruled in December that volunteers should be allowed to send down supplies to the trap men, and another edict last week ordered the state to launch a rescue operation, which began on Monday. All 82 that have been arrested are facing illegal mining, trespassing, and contravention of the Immigration Act charges, police said in a statement, referring to all those pulled out alive on Monday and Tuesday. The statement added that 2 of them would face additional charges of being in possession of gold. Gold, baby. What's up, Kill Your Egregore? It's good to see you, bud. The government cracked down part of an operation called Vala Umgadi, or close the hole. Hello. In the isiZulu language, has drawn criticism from human rights organizations and local residents. Yeah, so, I mean, and that's the thing. These old mines, they basically, yeah, it's basically like they said, these mines have been abandoned, and so the people come in because they know they didn't get all of them out. So now these individual efforts, they go into these dangerous places, and they're just getting killed. So that's it for our news block. We're going to get into the old propaganda watch here in just a second. As people are starting to flee TikTok for Red Note. What is Red Note? What's that crazy shit?
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same things that are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use those platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
So, U.S. TikTok users flock to Chinese app Xiaohongshu, also known as Red Note, in protest with TikTok ban looming. Dun, dun, dun. As the threat of a TikTok ban looms, U.S. TikTok users are flocking to the Chinese social media app Xiaohongshu, making it the top downloaded app in the U.S. So I believe that's what they call it. It is a Chinese app for Chinese people. It's not intended to be something that's, for everybody, but apparently now it is. But everybody else calls it Red Note because I guess they can't say that word, Xiaohongshu, which is not that hard. You just need a little practice. Some of the TikTok refugees, as they call themselves, say the TikTok alternative, a Chinese app, is being chosen in protest of the TikTok ban. The U.S. Supreme Court is due to rule on a law that stipulates TikTok must be divested from its Chinese parent company by ByteDance by January 19th, or face a ban in the U.S. over national security concerns. After the justices seem inclined to let the law stand, masses of TikTok users began creating accounts on Red Note. I'm just going to say Red Note because that's a mouthful, including hashtags such as TikTok refugee or TikTok to their posts. Hashtag, I guess I should have said. Since Monday, Red Note has become the top downloaded free app on Apple's App Store in the U.S. Red Note, which in English means little red book, that's what's called Red Note in English, is a Chinese social media app that combines e-commerce, short video, and posting functions. The app has gained traction in China and other regions and countries with the Chinese diaspora, such as Malaysia and Taiwan in recent years, racking up 300 million monthly active users, a majority of whom are young women who use it as a de facto search engine for product, travel, and restaurant recommendations, as well as makeup and skincare tutorials. That's what I use it for the skincare tutorials. Man, my shit's rugged. The hashtag TikTok refugee topic has racked up over 160,000 posts on RedNote, many of which are videos of American users introducing themselves and asking for tips on how to navigate the app, which they are calling RedNote, which I'm calling RedNote too. RedNote did not immediately respond to a request for comment from the AP. Alexis Garman is a 21-year-old TikTok user in Oklahoma with nearly 20,000 followers. She joined RedNote on Tuesday after seeing others do the same. Garman said she is not particularly concerned about data privacy. What I experienced on RedNote so far has been really great and inviting, said Garman. Get the hell out of here. Who has left 2 posts on the platform. I like your makeup, a RedNote user from Beijing comments on one of her posts, and Garman thanks them in a reply. A user from the southwestern province of Sichuan commented, I am your Chinese spy. Please surrender your personal information or the photographs of your cat or dog. TikTok possibly getting banned doesn't take away an app. It takes away jobs, friends, and community, Garman said. Personally, the friends and bond I have with my followers will now be gone. Other American users who have joined RedNote have been outspoken about joining the app in protest of the possible TikTok ban. An American user with the handle definitely not chippy made a video addressed to the Chinese users of RedNote explaining why Americans are downloading the app. The reason that our government is telling us that they are banning TikTok is because they're insisting that it's owned by you guys, the Chinese people, government, whatever, she said. And they're trying to make us think that you guys are bad. A lot of us are smarter than that, though, so we decided to piss off our government and download an actual Chinese app. We call that trolling. In short, we're here to spite our government and to learn about China and hang out with you guys. Chinese users on RedNote have so far welcomed American users, with some offering to teach them Chinese. Others have offered tips on navigating the Chinese internet, warning the new users not to mention or discuss anything considered politically sensitive, as they may get censored. In some cases, Chinese students have asked the Americans for help with their English homework. Like most apps and internet services in China, RedNote is subject to censorship. Platforms typically enforce censorship by deleting or shadow banning content that Beijing deems politically sensitive. Large Western platforms such as Google and Facebook are blocked in China. Though RedNote has seen an influx of users, it's not clear if the app could replace TikTok, which has created an ecosystem that allows for e-commerce and advertising. On that note, people have the attention span of a housefly, so TikTok, it will be a thing of the past, especially when somebody finds something newer and shinier. It's how we are. Before TikTok was under threat, the overwhelming majority of RedNote users were Chinese, and the app, which lacks translation features, is not optimized for an international user base. I'll tell you my experience here in a second once we're done with this. Even though U.S.-China tensions remain high over trade and national security, many Chinese and American RedNote users have pursued friendly cultural exchanges on the app. Those interactions range from live chat rooms to comments on posts. A TikTok refugee who goes by the name Amanda posted a video on how happy she was in finding the RedNote app, saying that Chinese users have been welcoming. Under her post, a Chinese user comments, "We are not enemy. We are human beings living in one world. We also never had a chance to communicate with you foreign guys directly, sharing the same app or platform, so the feeling is mutual since you come on this app," another says. In a comment posted in Chinese, Amanda, the TikTok refugee, said she would work on posting captions and subtitles in Chinese in the future. Damn, this sneeze almost knocked my headphones off. I am so happy to talk to Chinese people and learn about your culture and experiences, she said. Now, okay, so I downloaded this app, and it took a little bit to get it to get it set up, because I think you have to use your phone number, and you have to figure out you have to change the country code on their number. So anyway, I got in there, I set up my account. It's very easy once you get past that, and sure enough, right after that, I had a few people that commented, that sent me messages and saying, "Hi, welcome to RedNote. You know, we're Chinese. We hope you enjoy. Don't be a dick. No, they didn't say that, but I was pretty sure that's probably what they were thinking. It was funny. I put up a picture of myself. And, I got the little gray beard there and the short hair. And I had a few Chinese people say, Arnold Schwarzenegger. They say, are you Arnold Schwarzenegger? And I go, no, I'm not Arnold Schwarzenegger, but you still need to get to the chopper. Get to the chopper. Anyway, so far so good. I haven't had any, it is like you could set it to English, but good luck, because most all the pertinent stuff is in English. Like all the stuff like you need to know about likes and all that stuff, that's all in English. But the rest of it is like in Chinese, and unless you know Chinese, well, you might get a little lost on there. So just be patient if you're using it, and remember it's censorship, and things of that nature. So it's not a safe thing, but at least if you got a TikTok Jones and you need something that's pretty close to it, I think that's probably it's probably a thing. What's up, Global? Good to see you. Yeah, about it's not a tumor. It's not a tumor. Get your ass to Mars. So Meta is laying off thousands amid an AI move. Look at this guy. Commander data. Survey the planet below. Number 1. Thousands of Meta employees could be axed this year. That's not urban for asking. That's actually axed. This year is part of more extensive performance-based cuts, according to an internal memo by CEO Commander Data, cited by Bloomberg and other media on Tuesday. In the memo reportedly sent to all Meta employees, the company said it is planning to cut about 5% of staff it considers to be its lowest performers, with 2025 set to be an intense year. The affected employees will be notified by February 10th and receive generous severance in line with what the company has provided previously. The chief executive said he had decided to raise the bar on performance management, noting that the company typically manage out people who aren't meeting expectations over the course of a year, but was now planning on more extensive performance-based cuts sooner. The measures represent Meta's largest layoff since it trimmed 21,000 jobs, nearly a quarter of its workforce in 2022 and 2023. The company has more than 72,000 employees, according to its most recent quarterly report. Last week, Zuckerberg announced that Meta plans to replace mid-level engineers with artificial intelligence this year, suggesting that the technology could soon handle much of the coding currently performed by human engineers. In another drastic policy change, the tech giant has announced it is stopping the use of its fact-checking service, we told you about that already, which has become too politically biased, and moving to a system similar to the community notes system used by Elon Musk's platform X, or Tweeters. Said it also get rid of the rules that had restrictions on topics like immigration and gender identity. Yeah, and I think we reported on this the other day that they decided to drop their DEI programs and revise its approach to hiring. So they're getting rid of people, and AI is coming in. And I think you're going to see that on a lot of these social media platforms, where it once was a boon, and now AI is just going to take away all those fucking jobs too. So, as we keep on talking about Meta here, Brazil expresses concern over Meta's changes to content moderation. So, speaking of those changes, Brazilian authorities have expressed serious concern over a recent announcement by the social media giant that they'll ease their policies restricting incendiary speech and fact-checking. In a statement on Tuesday, the Brazilian Attorney General's office, the AGU, said that it would ask for more information from Meta, asking that the policy change may not comply with Brazilian law. In Brazil, they just call it a wax, just so you know. Some aspects contained in the Meta document cause serious concern. The changes now reported by Meta are not in line with Brazilian legislation and are not sufficient to protect the fundamental rights of citizens, the office said. Last week, Meta, which owns platforms like Facebook and Instagram, scrapped a third-party fact-checking program, as we said. The company also indicated it would loosen curbs on rhetoric that could be seen as hostile to groups such as immigrants and LGBTQ people. We're getting rid of a number of restrictions on topics like immigration, gender identity, and gender that are the subject of frequent political discourse and debate, Meta said in a statement. It's not right that things can be said on TV or the floor of Congress, but not on our platform. The shift away from fact-checking came within weeks of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's taking office on January 20th. Trump has repeatedly criticized social media platforms as biased. Yes, indeed. Al Jazeera has been having a time getting suspended in the Middle East, and now the Democratic Republic of Congo has suspended them for broadcasting an interview with M23 leader. The Democratic Republic of Congo has suspended broadcasts by the Qatar-based Al Jazeera network for 90 days on a precautionary basis. The decision by the Conseil supérieur de l'audiovisuel et de la communication, the CSAC, French for Broadcasting and Communication Council, came on Monday, 3 days after the Information Minister Patrick Muyaya announced the withdrawal of accreditation for Al Jazeera journalists in the DRC. The CSAC accused the Qatar-based channel of broadcasting an interview with a leader of the M23 terrorist group without cross-checking sources or contradictory opinions, with the aim of destabilizing the institutions of the DRC. The CSAC statement calls on cable TV companies operating in the DRC to strictly respect the decision. CSAC also calls on the public prosecutor at the Council of State and the National Satellite Telecommunications Network to contribute to the proper execution of the decision. Last Wednesday, CSAC also issued a warning to the French media, France 24, Radio France Internationale, and TV5 Monde, which it criticized for regularly highlighting the alleged advances of terrorist groups active on our territory while at the same time undermining the security of our country. As the war in North Kivu between the M23 and the Congolese army intensifies, coverage of conflict zones and related issues in the DRC is currently severely restricted. Last week, the government warned journalists and media outlets of tough penalties, including the death penalty for reporting on the M23. According to the Congolese authorities, the Al Jazeera's interview with M23 leader Bertrand Bisimwa was unacceptable. The interview was believed to have triggered the Ministry of Communication to withdraw the accreditation of the Al Jazeera journalists. Giving a voice to terrorists is tantamount to an apology for terrorism, which is totally unacceptable, Mr. Muyaya said. And I wish my name was Mr. Muyaya because it just sounds fun. Max Sarjay, what's going on? You didn't get your notification from YouTube? Drinking for pronunciation. I know, right? Yeah. Well, on that note, if you are, if you're subscribed, make sure that the bell is solid. All right, and then you get all the notifications. Because, again, fuckery is afoot, and YouTube is at the center usually of that kind of shit. Good to see you, Max, by the way. Finally, Egypt, the Egypt Parliament authorizes public prosecution to monitor communications platforms. Because, of course, they do. Egypt's House of Representatives authorized the public prosecution to issue orders for monitoring or reviewing communication channels, including social media accounts, emails, and mobile phones. The House approved Articles 62-102 of the Criminal Procedure Bill. The 40 articles constitute the first 4 chapters of the bill's 3rd section, which addresses investigations carried out by the prosecution. Some members of Parliament demanded that prosecutors' investigations be made public, but their demands were rejected. Parliament required the approval of the investigating judge for this authority to be given to public prosecution. The investigating judge's approval is valid for up to 30 days and can be renewed for similar periods, according to the approved articles of the bill. Article 79 of the bill stipulates that prosecutors are permitted, after obtaining the judge's approval, to issue orders for the seizures of letters, messages, telegrams. I almost said massages. That would be awesome. Seize a massage. Telegrams, newspapers, publications, and parcels. According to the bill, prosecutors are also authorized to monitor wired and wireless communication, social media accounts, and their private content, emails, text messages, audio, and video messages on mobile phones and other devices. Wow, you go, Egypt. The bill also permits prosecutors to seize the devices as well as to record conversations conducted privately if this is deemed necessary for investigations in felonies or misdemeanors that are punishable by more than 3 months in prison. Not going to Egypt anytime soon. I'm gonna, although I would love to see the pyramids. I wanna see the giant power plants that were built by aliens many years ago. So that's it for the old propaganda watch there, brought to you by Fuckery, where fuckery is always afoot. Finally, we have a couple of fun ones here for you. Try and get your MLK Day off to a good start. A very hairy situation at a Moscow airport. One does not know what part a person would have to play in a hairy situation, but Customs sees 50 kilograms of hair at a Moscow airport. See, it's hairy. Harry and the Hendersons. Customs officials at Domodedovo Airport in Moscow. Domodedovo, Mr. Roboto, Domo. Domodedovo, Mr. Have confiscated 110 pounds of human hair worth nearly $70,000, goddamn, from the luggage of a foreign passenger arriving from Dubai. 110 pounds of hair. The 37-year-old man passed through the airport's green corridor reserved for passengers with no items to declare, but was flagged during a baggage inspection, according to the Customs Press Service. Officials discovered 7 plastic bags containing 300 bundles of natural hair of various colors and types. The man, who identified himself as a hairstylist returning from an international beauty festival, claimed he was unaware of the declaration rules. He estimated the value of the hair at $3,000, stating he intended to use it for making wigs, extensions, hairpieces in Russia. Authorities charged the passenger with violating customs declaration regulations, and a court imposed an administrative fine exceeding $32,000. In recent months, custom officials at major airports in the Russian capital have reported similar seizures. A passenger at Sheremetyevo Airport was found carrying mammoth tusk fragments and now faces up to 5 years in prison and a fine of up to $10,000. In July, a passenger was stopped at Domodedovo, Mr. Roboto Domo Airport, attempting to take 11 walrus tusks to Cairo. So hair and tusks are where it's at, folks. He claimed he bought them at a flea market to use as furniture legs. Experts later determined the tusks, in fact, held significant cultural value as they came from an Atlantic walrus listed in Russia's Red Data Book, a state document established for documenting rare and endangered species. And finally, folks, in Chicago, we got coyotes, and the coyote made a mistake, winds up in the Aldi refrigerated shelf. Oops! So, the Aldi's on Kedzie in Humboldt Park. I was prepared to see him pull out a possum or a raccoon. Did not expect that. Wait a minute. Let's see if we can... This is at Aldi's, folks, where you can get deals on coyotes. They got him? How the fuck did he get in there? He wants to go back in. He said, fuck it. It's cool. Yeah, no, lots of bitches missing their weaves. Russian weaves, too, I guess. So a confused coyote was removed from a grocery store's refrigerated shelf Monday morning. The incident occurred at a Chicago area Aldi store where the animal apparently sought refuge in the store's produce aisle. It picked an odd location. They do this sometimes to make a mistake. Cook County Coyote Project Stan Garrett told ABC 7 Chicago, "They're trying to avoid us. They're trying to hide from us." He added that the animals that typically find themselves in this situation are the ones that haven't yet settled down with a mate. So that's why he was in the refrigerator section, because he's too hot, and and he got nobody to do the business with. So it's kind of like their version of a cold shower. Coyote was removed from the store without injury. So the video showed a police officer using the back end of a broom to prod the coyote before pulling it out by its tail. The post accumulated nearly 8 million views and over 1,000 documents. Officials also said that the coyote had a rocket strapped to its back and was apparently chasing a roadrunner bird. So the bird had apparently needed to stop at Aldi's to make a purchase because of the prices are so good there. Also, Aldi's does pay very well. So if you're looking for a gig, Aldi's is the place, man. I think they're up their minimum wage to like 20 something bucks an hour, and pretty good people to work for too. So I don't work for them yet. I'm trying, but I'm just saying, I worked in grocery stores before, and Aldi's, they treat their people right, and their prices are good too. So I'm sure there's something wrong. Maybe there's Nazis in the mix. Who knows? But as long as I don't know that part, that's none of my business. So anyway, so yeah, that's all the news that's fit to print for today. Again, tonight I will be on Willie Bragg's show tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern. On the YouTubes. He's on Twitch as well. So if you're a Twitcher, if you feel twitchy, you can watch us there too. Should be fun. We'll be talking. He asked me what we wanted to talk about, and I said maybe we could talk about the LA fires. Since I used to live out there, and and whatever stuff. Maybe we'll talk about coyotes and laser beams from space. Who knows? But it should be a good time. Also, don't forget, I think Kevin is back on the air now with Black Bear News. I think he's been doing his show regularly at 2 p.m. Eastern too. So I believe he'll be on today on YouTube and Rockfin. And of course tonight, Around the World with Dee and Friends, 9 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and Facebook. So that's going to do it for me on MLK's birthday. Folks, if you like what you saw, or if you're interested in becoming part of the fam, our little family here, you can like, share, and subscribe. We appreciate that. Also, there's donation links down below. We have a Patreon. If you want to do $1 a month, we do that too. All those links are in the description down below. And of course, our donation links for Chanda and Kevin are there as well. So I hopefully will see y'all tonight for Willie Bragg show. This show will be back on Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Mountain Time, and 8 a.m. Pacific Time. Yes, I said specific on purpose. Hopefully, if you're in a cold place, stay warm. If you're in a hot place, kind of jealous, but, I'll get over it. So, stay out of the cults. Use your critical thinking skills. Watch out for fuckery. It's always afoot everywhere you go. But at the same time, enjoy the sunshine. Enjoy the little things. What's up, Dingo? You're just in time for the end of the show. Which is fine. It's all right. So anyway, guys, enjoy yourselves. Have a great day, and take care of yourselves and each other. Because knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe!
This is City Alpha 5! Woo!